What if everything you thought you knew about time, about its steady march, its unyielding flow, was a lie? Imagine this. Time isn't a one-way street, but a network of hidden paths, and somewhere, someone has the map. For decades, whispers have echoed in the corridors of power, in the basements of think tanks, and across the shadowy corners of the internet. Rumors of a device, a time lens, capable of bending time itself. They say it can peer into the distant past or glimpse an uncharted future. A technology so profound, so dangerous, it's been hidden from public view. Now consider this. What if the strange anomalies in history, the bizarre coincidences, and the unexplainable foresight of certain events could all be traced back to this device? What if it's already being used secretly by the governments of the world? Think about the implications. What could you do if you knew tomorrow's headlines today? If you could see wars before they began, disasters before they struck, or markets before they shifted, who would have the power, and who would pay the price? The time lens isn't just a theory. Alleged leaks, classified documents, and cryptic whistleblower accounts suggest something extraordinary is happening behind closed doors. But is it real? And if it is, why is it being kept from us? In this video, we'll unravel the enigma, connecting dots you've never noticed before, diving into history's darkest experiments, exploring groundbreaking physics, and following the trail of secrets to their inevitable conclusion. Stay with us, because once you start seeing the patterns, you won't be able to unsee them. What if time isn't what it seems? What if someone out there already knows the answers? To understand the origins of the time lens, we must journey back to the intersection of science, ambition, and secrecy. The concept of manipulating time didn't spring from science fiction. It grew from the fertile minds of visionaries who dared to question the fundamental nature of reality. Their work, often dismissed as theoretical or too ambitious for its time, laid the foundation for whispers of a device capable of bending the very fabric of time. Our story begins with Nikola Tesla, a name synonymous with genius and mystery. Tesla's experiments pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible, earning him a reputation as a man ahead of his time, perhaps literally. Among his many achievements, Tesla reportedly dabbled in creating windows in time. His journals, many of which mysteriously disappeared after his death, contained cryptic notes about experiments involving electromagnetic fields so intense they could, in theory, warp space-time itself. Tesla once hinted at his belief that energy fields, when properly manipulated, could disrupt the linear flow of time. Was this the eccentric musings of a brilliant but misunderstood inventor? Or was Tesla onto something so profound that it had to be hidden away? Some even speculate that the confiscated documents fell into the hands of government agencies, sparking a covert race to weaponize the concepts he explored. A few decades later, Albert Einstein's groundbreaking work on relativity provided the theoretical underpinning for time manipulation. His famous equation, E=mc², revealed the relationship between energy and matter, while his theories on the curvature of space-time suggested that time was not a rigid constant, but a flexible dimension. While Einstein himself likely never considered the possibility of building a machine to exploit these principles, others were less constrained by morality or caution. The 1940s marked the emergence of two of the most controversial events in the history of time manipulation. First, the infamous Philadelphia experiment. Allegedly, the U.S. Navy attempted to render the USS Eldridge invisible to radar using powerful electromagnetic fields. Witnesses claim the ship didn't just disappear, it blinked out of time, reappearing hundreds of miles away in Virginia before snapping back to its original location. Accounts describe horrific consequences. Sailors fused into the ship's steel, others driven insane by what they had seen or experienced. Officially, the Navy denies the experiment ever took place, dismissing the story as a fabrication. But isn't that exactly what they'd say if the experiment succeeded? if they'd stumbled upon a way to manipulate time? Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Nazi Germany was rumored to be conducting its own experiments on time manipulation. The device at the center of these rumors was known as Die Glocke, or the bell. Descriptions of Die Glocke are vague and inconsistent, but common threads suggest it was a bell-shaped machine capable of generating massive electromagnetic fields. Some claim it was designed to harness gravitational forces, potentially affecting time itself. When the war ended, Die Glocke and its lead scientists vanished. Some theorists believe the technology was smuggled out of Germany as part of secret deals struck during Operation Paperclip, where German scientists were quietly integrated into U.S. research programs. If true, it means the seeds of the time lens may have been planted decades ago, nurtured in the shadowy corridors of post-war geopolitics. In the years that followed, the advent of quantum mechanics added a new layer to the puzzle. The discovery of quantum entanglement, a phenomenon where particles remain interconnected regardless of distance, upended our understanding of causality. Suddenly, the idea of connecting 2 points in time didn't seem entirely out of reach. By the late 20th century, whispers of government experiments involving temporal displacement began to emerge. Declassified documents from projects like MKUltra and Stargate suggest that research into psychic phenomena, remote viewing, and even time perception was of significant interest to intelligence agencies. Could these have been preliminary steps toward a more ambitious goal, building a device capable of peering into the past or future? One particular case stands out. In 1993, a whistleblower claimed to have worked on a classified project involving temporal observation technology. This individual described a prototype device that used advanced superconductors and exotic materials to generate what he called a time window. While these claims were never verified, the description aligns with what some theorists believe would be the foundation for a time lens. Consider the implications. If a device could observe the past, it could uncover hidden truths, rewrite narratives, or validate conspiracy theories. If it could peer into the future, it could be used to predict market crashes, wars, or political outcomes. The power to see time is the power to control it, and by extension, to control everything. From Tesla to Einstein, from the Philadelphia experiment to Die Glocke, and from quantum mechanics to modern black projects, the threads of this story stretch across history. Whether you believe these accounts or not, one thing is certain: the pursuit of time manipulation is not a new idea. It has deep roots, and those roots may have grown into something extraordinary, something hidden from view. But where does it lead? Is the time lens a myth, a product of overactive imaginations? Or is it real, lurking in the shadows, wielded by those who understand its potential and its risks? The idea of a time lens, a device capable of peering into the past or future, feels like it's pulled straight from science fiction. But what if it's not? What if the technology isn't just possible, but already exists? How could such a device actually work? Let's break it down. At its core, the time lens is said to harness two of the most mysterious phenomena in modern physics: quantum entanglement and the manipulation of space-time. Think of time as a fabric, one that can be stretched, bent, or even punctured. The time lens supposedly creates a window in this fabric, offering a direct view into moments that would otherwise be unreachable. It all begins with quantum entanglement. This phenomenon, baffling as it sounds, links particles so closely that a change in one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. It's as if information can bypass the limitations of space and time. Now, what if this principle could be pushed even further? What if scientists found a way to create a bridge not just across space, but across time itself? And then there's the concept of exotic materials. You've probably never heard of time crystals, but they're real. Discovered in 2012, time crystals are structures that don't just exist in space, they oscillate in time. Unlike ordinary matter, they can hold a stable repeating pattern through the time dimension. Combine that with superconductors, which can conduct energy without resistance, and you might just have the foundation for bending the rules of time. But how would this work in practice? Imagine time as a movie reel. Each frame represents a moment, and we're used to experiencing the movie one frame at a time. What if you had the power to pause, rewind, or even jump ahead? The time lens, according to reports, does exactly that. It isolates specific frames of time and projects them onto a screen or a viewing medium. Some accounts even describe it as a holographic display, where past or future events appear as though unfolding in real time. Leaked documents hint at something even more advanced: a three-dimensional map of time itself, allowing users to navigate through history or future moments by selecting specific coordinates. If this sounds like science fiction, let's consider some real-world experiments. Take CERN's Large Hadron Collider, the most powerful particle accelerator on Earth. Officially, the LHC smashes particles together to study the universe's fundamental building blocks. But in 2015, researchers detected strange, unexplained temporal fluctuations during high-energy collisions. The official explanation? Vague and inconclusive. But some believe this could be evidence of accidental time manipulation, unintended echoes of something far more profound. And then there's DARPA, the US government's secretive research agency. In 2009, a whistleblower alleged that DARPA funded a project codenamed Kronos, focused on exploring the practical applications of temporal displacement fields. Details were scarce, but the description closely aligns with the mechanics of a time lens. One of the most intriguing stories comes from a retired physicist who claimed to have worked on a classified project in the 1980s. According to him, a prototype device used powerful magnetic fields and exotic materials to create a faint time echo, showing blurry images of events from decades past. But the experiment, he said, went horribly wrong. The distortions caused disorientation, confusion, and bizarre visions of past and future moments. The project was allegedly shut down, its findings buried in secrecy. Another case involves a leaked photograph, supposedly taken at a military installation in Nevada. The image shows a circular machine with a glowing core surrounded by an array of advanced equipment. Some believe this could be an early time lens prototype, although its true purpose remains classified. If such a device exists, it raises a question that might haunt you: who controls it? Could governments or private organizations already be using it to shape history or secure their futures? And what does it mean for the rest of us if they are? The implications are staggering. Imagine using the time lens to predict disasters, manipulate markets, or uncover hidden truths. But consider the risks as well. Time isn't just a tool, it's a delicate balance. What happens if that balance is disrupted? If the time lens is real, it's almost certainly not in your hands. So the question isn't just about whether this technology exists, it's about who has it and what they're doing with it. If the time lens is real, the most pressing question isn't how it works, but who controls it. A device like this, capable of peering into the past or glimpsing the future, would be the ultimate weapon. Knowledge of time is power, and in the wrong hands, it could reshape the world without anyone ever realizing it. So who are the players in this hidden game of temporal chess? Let's start with the obvious suspect: government agencies. For decades, the CIA and other intelligence organizations have been linked to shadowy projects that push the boundaries of science. One name that repeatedly surfaces in conspiracy circles is Project Looking Glass. Allegedly, this black-budget initiative sought to develop a device capable of predicting potential future events. Whistleblowers have claimed that Project Looking Glass wasn't just theoretical. It produced a functional prototype capable of visualizing timelines. But the US isn't the only player in this game. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was rumored to be conducting its own experiments in temporal technology. Declassified KGB documents hint at research into something called chronometric observation systems, although the details remain frustratingly vague. If the Soviets were exploring time manipulation, it raises an unsettling question: was the race to control time running parallel to the arms race? And it's not just governments. Some of the most secretive and powerful corporations on the planet have been implicated in funding advanced research with ambiguous goals. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, with their deep ties to defense contracts and classified projects, have been accused of developing technology far beyond public knowledge. Could private interests be leveraging the time lens to maintain their dominance in global markets? Even more enigmatic are the whispers of mysterious organizations operating outside traditional structures of power. Groups like the Bilderberg Group and the Freemasons have long been the focus of conspiracy theories, accused of manipulating world events from the shadows. If a device like the time lens exists, these organizations would have every incentive to acquire it, if they didn't create it themselves. One story stands out as a tantalizing clue. In the 1980s, an anonymous source claimed to have seen documents linking the time lens to a global financial manipulation scandal. According to this source, the device was used to predict stock market movements and major economic events, allowing an elite group to profit while the rest of the world suffered. While this account has never been verified, it aligns disturbingly well with a series of unexplained market anomalies that occurred during that time. And then there are the theories that stretch even further into the realm of speculation. Some believe that the time lens is tied to extraterrestrial technology, reverse-engineered from recovered UFOs. If this is true, it suggests that humanity's mastery of time might not be our own achievement, but a borrowed one. Could this explain the overwhelming secrecy surrounding the device? Whoever controls the time lens, one thing is certain: they hold a power that could upend the fabric of society. The ability to see into the future or scrutinize the past isn't just a tool for knowledge, it's a tool for control. Elections, wars, economies, and even cultural movements could be shaped by those with access to this technology. But there's another layer to this story, one that's even more unsettling. If someone is using the time lens, would they ever let us know? Or would they manipulate events so subtly that we'd never suspect? What if the world we live in has already been shaped over and over by invisible hands wielding a device we can barely comprehend? These are the questions we must ask as we dig deeper into the mystery. Because the truth isn't just about whether the time lens exists, it's about what's being done with it, and whether we'll ever know the full extent of its influence. If the time lens exists, it's not something ordinary people would ever see, let alone control. A device with the power to peer through time wouldn't be left in the hands of the public. No, it would be hidden away, safeguarded by those with the resources, influence, and motives to wield it for their own purposes. But who are they? Who might be pulling the strings of history from the shadows? The most obvious suspects are governments. For decades, nations around the world have poured billions of dollars into black projects, covert operations so secretive that their existence is often denied outright. Among the most persistent rumors is one involving the CIA and a mysterious initiative known as Project Looking Glass. Allegedly, this program aimed to create a device capable of peering into the future, using a combination of advanced optics, quantum mechanics, and theoretical physics. Whistleblowers claim prototypes were tested as far back as the 1960s, with results so shocking they've been classified ever since. And the United States isn't alone in this pursuit. During the Cold War, the race for technological dominance wasn't just about nuclear weapons or space exploration. Both the Americans and the Soviets were rumored to be conducting experiments into time manipulation. Soviet scientists, reportedly influenced by Einstein's theories and Tesla's experiments, are said to have attempted their own temporal breakthroughs. If true, could the time lens be a remnant of that era? A creation so powerful and so dangerous that it was buried in secrecy once the Cold War ended. But it's not just governments. For years, defense contractors and private corporations have operated as extensions of these covert programs. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman have long histories of working on classified technologies. These corporations have access to the brightest minds, the most cutting-edge facilities, and crucially, plausible deniability. If the time lens was ever developed, it's likely these companies played a role, quietly advancing the technology under the guise of unrelated research. Then there's DARPA, the US government's shadowy research agency. Known for funding projects that seem ripped from the pages of science fiction, DARPA has long been suspected of dabbling in time-related experiments. In 2009, a whistleblower alleged the existence of a program codenamed Cronus. Officially, Cronus never existed. But according to the whistleblower, it involved studying temporal displacement fields and their potential applications. Could this have been an early prototype or precursor to the time lens? Beyond governments and corporations, we enter the murky waters of secret societies and shadow organizations, theories that stretch back centuries. Groups like the Bilderberg Group, the Freemasons, and the Trilateral Commission have often been accused of steering world events from behind closed doors. These groups, if they exist as some believe, operate with a level of secrecy that rivals any government agency. If the time lens is real, imagine the power it would give these organizations. The ability to foresee elections, predict economic crashes, or manipulate wars before they even happen. This wouldn't just be influence, it would be control on a scale so vast it defies comprehension. There are even whispers that the time lens has already been used to shape the world as we know it. A leaked document from the 1980s allegedly ties the device to global financial manipulations. According to this report, certain entities were able to use glimpses into the future to make precise stock market predictions, generating unimaginable wealth. This wasn't just about money, it was about consolidating power, ensuring that those who controlled the time lens would remain untouchable for generations. And then there's the possibility of a darker use: surveillance. Imagine a government with the ability to look into the past of anyone they deemed a threat. Imagine being able to predict uprisings, protests, or even individual actions before they occur. Could the time lens already be monitoring potential threats, preemptively neutralizing them before they even emerge? The implications are chilling. If someone or some group controls the time lens, it means they don't just control the present. They control the past, rewriting history as it suits them. They control the future, steering events to align with their own interests. But perhaps the most terrifying thought is this: what if we'd never know? What if we're already living in a reality shaped by decisions made using knowledge that's hidden from the rest of us? Consider the curious coincidences in modern history. Political leaders who seem to possess uncanny foresight, corporations that profit from disasters, or wars that align perfectly with the interests of a select few. Are these merely the natural outcomes of human ambition and strategy? Or are they the fingerprints of a power so absolute that it remains invisible? What's clear is this: if the time lens exists, it is not in the hands of the many. It is in the hands of the few. Those who understand its potential, its risks, and its consequences would go to unimaginable lengths to keep it secret. And the more we investigate, the clearer it becomes. There's far more to this story than meets the eye. If the time lens is real, its impact would leave traces, ripples across history, anomalies that defy explanation, and moments that seem almost too convenient to be mere chance. Could these be the fingerprints of a technology used in secret? What if the most mysterious events in our history weren't random at all, but carefully orchestrated by those with the ability to see what others could not? Let's start with one of the most perplexing phenomena of the modern era: the Mandela effect. Named after the widespread but false memory of Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s, the Mandela effect describes collective memories that differ from historical records. People vividly recall events, details, or timelines that never officially happened. Could this be evidence of temporal interference? If the time lens allows for viewing, or even altering the past, could these distortions be unintended side effects, remnants of changes made to the timeline? And then there are the uncanny predictions made by world leaders throughout history. Take Winston Churchill, for example. During World War II, Churchill seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to anticipate Germany's moves, decisions, and weaknesses. Was it simply brilliant strategy, or could Churchill, or those advising him, have had access to glimpses of future outcomes? The same question arises with other pivotal moments. Consider the stock market crash of 1929. A few mysterious investors reportedly made staggering fortunes by shorting stocks just days before the collapse. Officially, these trades are chalked up to intuition or luck. But what if they weren't? What if these individuals had knowledge no one else could have? Knowledge gained through a device like the time lens. The coincidences don't stop there. In 2001, as the world reeled from the tragedy of 9/11, reports emerged of unusual stock trades made in the days leading up to the attacks. Certain airlines and industries directly impacted by the events saw massive short-selling activity, suggesting foreknowledge. Official investigations dismissed the trades as coincidental, but skeptics have always questioned whether someone knew, and how they knew. Could the time lens have been involved? There's also the story of a strange photograph, circulated online in the mid-2010s. The photo, supposedly taken in the 1940s, shows a man in modern-looking clothing holding what appears to be a portable device with a screen. Dismissed as a hoax by many, some conspiracy theorists argue that it's evidence of temporal observation, a snapshot of someone using a prototype time lens to observe the past in real time. The possibilities grow even more disturbing when you consider military conflicts. The precision with which certain nations have predicted and prepared for wars, sometimes even conflicts that seemed improbable, raises unsettling questions. Could glimpses into the future have shaped strategies, alliances, and outcomes? And then there's the question of disasters. If someone could see the future, why wouldn't they use that knowledge to prevent catastrophic events? Unless, of course, those events served a purpose. In the case of Hurricane Katrina, some theorists point to the eerily precise financial movements made by a handful of individuals and companies before the storm hit. These trades, which benefited enormously from the disaster, hint at foreknowledge that may have come from more than just weather predictions. But not all ripples would be intentional. The very act of observing the past or future might create disturbances, small, unintended shifts that cascade into larger effects over time. Imagine dropping a pebble into a still pond. The ripples may seem harmless, but as they spread, they alter the water's surface. Could the Mandela effect and other unexplained anomalies be the result of these ripples? There's another angle to consider. What about the moments of technological or cultural leaps that seem almost too advanced for their time? Think of the sudden breakthroughs in computing during the mid-20th century, or the rapid acceleration of artificial intelligence in recent years. Could these leaps be connected to insights gained through the time lens? Perhaps glimpses of future technologies were reverse-engineered, introducing innovations decades ahead of schedule. The patterns are there if you look closely. Unexplained foresight, suspiciously timed financial moves, and historical events that align too perfectly with specific agendas. If the time lens exists, it could be the ultimate tool for influence, shaping history, controlling the present, and steering the future. But here's the catch. If it's being used, those controlling it would go to extraordinary lengths to ensure we never find out. After all, the greatest power lies not in possessing the tool, but in keeping it hidden. If the time lens exists, it's not just a tool of unimaginable power, it's a device fraught with danger. Manipulating time, even observing it, could come with risks so profound they defy comprehension. What happens when we play with the fabric of reality itself? What are the consequences of looking through time? Let's start with the scientific risks. Time, as we understand it, isn't just a dimension. It's the framework that holds causality together. Every action has a reaction, every effect a cause. But what happens when you disrupt that flow? Theories about temporal paradoxes suggest that observing or interacting with the past or future could create unpredictable ripple effects. Imagine a butterfly effect on a cosmic scale. A single observation or action could cascade into unintended consequences, altering events in ways no one could predict or control. And then there's the observer effect. In quantum physics, the act of observing a particle changes its behavior. Could the same principle apply to time? Could merely viewing the past or future cause distortions in the timeline? If so, those distortions might not be apparent immediately. They might unfold gradually, creating anomalies that could destabilize reality itself. The potential for human error is another terrifying possibility. What if the time lens fell into the hands of someone reckless, or worse, someone with malicious intent? The temptation to manipulate the timeline, to change outcomes for personal or political gain, would be immense. And once a timeline is altered, how do you undo it? What if the changes spiral out of control, creating a future far worse than the one you were trying to avoid? Ethical questions loom just as large. Should anyone have the right to peer into someone else's life, past or future, without their consent? Imagine the implications for privacy. Governments or corporations could use the time lens to spy on individuals, uncover secrets, or predict and manipulate behavior. This isn't just surveillance, it's omniscience. And what about free will? If you can see the future, does that future become inevitable? Or can you change it? The very act of knowing might strip us of our ability to choose, turning life into a predetermined script. Philosophers and scientists have long debated whether time is fixed or fluid, but the time lens could force us to confront that question in the most unsettling way possible. Let's consider some hypothetical consequences. Imagine a government using the time lens to predict the outcome of an election. They see a result they don't like, so they intervene, shaping events to produce a different outcome. But in doing so, they create unforeseen consequences: economic collapse, social unrest, or even war. Or take a scenario where a corporation uses the time lens to dominate the stock market. They predict trends, corner industries, and amass unprecedented wealth. But their actions destabilize the global economy, leading to poverty and suffering on a massive scale. And then there are the risks we can't even imagine. If time is a fabric, what happens if we tear it? Could repeated use of the time lens create temporal fractures, gaps or distortions in the timeline that grow larger over time? Some theorists speculate that the unexplained phenomena we call déjà vu or time slips might already be evidence of such fractures. There's also the possibility of psychological damage. Observing the future could reveal outcomes too horrifying to process: wars, disasters, personal tragedies. Knowing what's coming but being powerless to change it could drive even the strongest minds to despair. Conversely, looking into the past could uncover truths too painful to face, shattering long-held beliefs and altering our perception of reality. And then there's the ultimate question: should humanity even possess such power? History is filled with examples of technologies that were created before their consequences were fully understood. Nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering. The time lens could be the most dangerous of them all, not just because of what it allows us to see, but because of what it tempts us to do. The risks are staggering. A single misstep could unravel everything we know. Yet the allure of the time lens is undeniable. The possibility of understanding time, of mastering it, is a temptation few could resist. So, if the time lens exists, we have to ask, who has the wisdom, the restraint, and the morality to use it responsibly? And if no one does, are we better off not knowing at all? Not everyone is convinced that the time lens exists, let alone that it's being used in secret. For every theory and piece of alleged evidence, there are skeptics ready to dismiss it all as pseudoscience, misinterpretation, or outright fabrication. But is their skepticism well-founded, or is it just another layer of obfuscation? Let's begin with the scientific perspective. Physicists argue that time manipulation, as described by time lens theories, violates fundamental laws of physics. Time, they say, is not something that can be viewed or bent like a physical object. While Einstein's theories suggest that time is relative and can be influenced by gravity, the idea of creating a device to directly observe the past or future is considered far-fetched by most mainstream scientists. Quantum mechanics is often cited as the foundation for the time lens, but even there, skepticism abounds. While quantum entanglement and time crystals are real phenomena, their connection to time manipulation remains speculative at best. Many physicists believe that these concepts are being misinterpreted or exaggerated by conspiracy theorists. Then there's the lack of concrete evidence. For all the whispers, leaks, and whistleblower accounts, no verified physical proof of a time lens has ever been produced. The alleged leaked documents and blurry photographs could easily be hoaxes or misattributions. And while stories of classified projects like Project Looking Glass or Kronos are tantalizing, they remain unsubstantiated. Without hard evidence, skeptics argue, the time lens remains firmly in the realm of science fiction. Historical anomalies, like the Mandela effect or precise financial predictions, also have more mundane explanations. Psychologists attribute the Mandela effect to memory distortion, a well-documented phenomenon where groups of people misremember details. As for mysterious stock trades or predictions, skeptics point to statistical outliers, insider information, or simply coincidence. Another common argument is that claims about the time lens rely too heavily on conspiracy theories. Critics argue that these stories often lack reliable sources and rely on narratives that can't be verified. They suggest that the idea of a secret device controlled by shadowy elites is more about feeding our distrust of authority than uncovering the truth. But even skeptics acknowledge one troubling fact. Governments and corporations do have a history of conducting secret experiments and hiding advanced technologies. From the Manhattan Project to covert programs like MKUltra, there's a precedent for ambitious, highly classified projects operating outside public scrutiny. Could the time lens be another example, hidden so well that even skeptics can't disprove it? It's also worth noting that skepticism can be weaponized. If the time lens does exist, those who control it would have every reason to foster doubt, to discredit whistleblowers, and to ensure the technology remains a myth to the public. After all, the best way to hide the truth is to make it seem unbelievable. For every skeptic, there's a believer who asks, if it's all fake, why do governments go to such lengths to suppress information? Why are whistleblowers silenced, documents classified, and experiments dismissed as fabrications? Skeptics might demand evidence, but believers argue that the lack of transparency is evidence in itself. And then there are the unexplained anomalies, events and phenomena that defy conventional explanations. Even the most ardent skeptics struggle to dismiss them entirely. Why do certain world leaders and organizations seem to possess knowledge that others don't? Why do patterns emerge in history that suggest foresight beyond human intuition? The truth, as always, lies somewhere between belief and skepticism. Could the time lens be a fabrication born from humanity's fascination with time and power? Absolutely. But could it also be real, hidden in plain sight, protected by a web of denial and obfuscation? That possibility is what keeps the question alive. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide. Do the skeptics have it right, or is their disbelief just another piece of the puzzle?